Hi guys, and welcome to our November edition for the GEGNZ. Tonight we are going to talk through what kind of happened at the Google Teachers Academy in Sydney a couple of months ago, and also talk through the design process, which is what we used when we were over there. We've also been using it within our classroom, and we'll kind of give some hints and tips on how it's been for us and things like that. So along the way you'll hear from three of our Google certified teachers. We've got Anne Batchelor from Alexandra Primary School. Do you want to say hi, Anne? We've got Alyx Gillett from Diocesan School, and we've got Barbara Reid from the University of Waikato. We've also got Fiona Grant, who will be manning our Q&A app, so if you have any questions through this presentation, then post them up there. And Matt Ives will also be hosting with me, and he'll be talking you through the design process. The agenda is posted on our GEGNZ site and on the Google Plus page, so if you'd like any of the resources or any of the links we've been talking about, go over there. So welcome everybody, and we're going to start off by Matt talking us through what the design process kind of entails.
Yeah, so I've just done a bit of a paper as a part of my master's course on design thinking with Ewan Macintosh, which was wonderful. So I've got it all in my head at the moment. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly and bring up a pretty brilliant image that we've got. Can people see that? Amy, are we good? We good? Okay.
Matt,
excuse me?
You've frozen.
Am I frozen? Brilliant. Can you see me? Can you see the design thinking image now, or?
No. Try it again.
Oh, this is going well right from the start. Hang on, I'll just press stop and share it again. Can you see it now?
Can anyone else see it? No.
Okay, I'll just talk about it then. So the design thinking process, it's been kind of, I guess back in the day it was about, you know, marketing and product development and stuff, but recently, I guess in the last, 10, 15 years, it's really being used in education a lot more, because some of the ideals that are in the design thinking process really mesh well with what we consider really good pedagogy. So the design thinking process is characterized by different phases, and these are the phases we went through. That's it. Thank you. As a part of the Google Teacher Academy. So the first phase is immersion, and I guess this phase is about divergent thinking. It's about big thinking about the wider context of an issue you want to explore, and it's about empathy, gaining empathy for other people's points of view. And in the Google Teacher Academy, we did this by giving participants in the academy a set of pre-GTA challenges which they had to take part in, which was a lot of the activities were just about kind of sitting back and learning and watching their spaces happen around them, and kind of picking up on the little bits and bobs that they saw. So it's about time. This immersion phase needs time. It's about gathering knowledge about how other people do things, putting yourself in other people's shoes, and about gathering knowledge. So from this phase and kind of lingering in this phase and making sure you're gathering things from people's point of view gives you much more inspiration and motivation, and you can kind of hone in on what you want to focus on during the synthesis phase, which is the next part. And if you can see that image right now, that you can see the immersion phase is quite broad, and then in the synthesis part you really hone in on some of the issues or problems here. This phase is characterized by, you often have quite a visual or physical place, or called a project nest, where you gather up all the bits and bobs you've come up with during the immersion phase, and you've got them all out in front of you. And so you've got these pieces, you've got these artifacts of comments and pictures and sketches and all kinds of stuff, and you've got it all out in front of you. And that's when you start to sort and cluster, connect and compare, eliminate stuff, focus in on stuff. It's about finding the opportunities within that that have emerged during the immersion phase. And one way that this kind of really narrows in on, that point at which it narrows in on, is a how might we statement. So you've clustered and come up with all this amazing stuff, and you've kind of really honed in on what you want to focus on, which is what at the Google Teacher Academy, and something we'll talk about a bit later, which was a how might we statement. So from there, the next phase is up the top. You can see immersion, synthesis. The next phase is ideation. So you've got this brilliant kind of focus in terms of a how might we statement. And ideation is the process of seeking innovative ideas to solve the identified problem, using the knowledge that you've formed during the immersion and synthesis phases. So it's about really, again, it kind of broadens out again, and it's about divergent thinking and coming up with ideas to solve the problem. And it's more than just everybody has their lovely idea that they think can, solve the problem. But at this phase, it's actually just about getting every single idea out there, whether they're the crazy ones, or the really good ones, or the worst ideas. Just getting them all out there, available. And at this phase, it's also good to be collaborative. And highly analog, getting everything out of the head and out of your computer and putting it on paper. That really, really helps. And then you go into the prototyping phase, which is where you start to make ideas. You start to play with ideas. And during this phase, you get feedback, really quick and rapid feedback on your ideas, which allows you to make them better and better. There's nothing worse than someone having this idea, and they love it and they love it and they love it, and they get feedback right at the end of the process, and they don't have time to be able to make it better. So you can see it says version 1, version 2, version 3, and you're getting feedback and critique that whole way through, which really refines your ideas. And then you get to that final point where you have a really good idea that's been informed by this whole gigantic process of empathy and ideation and feedback, and you get something that's really, really special and really tailored towards the problem you want to approach. So that's design thinking, and it's a really brilliant way to approach, in some cases, education, because lots of teachers know that feedback is just so important in education, and this is really helping kids to, and we'll talk about this later, helping kids to be able to take feedback and improve whatever they're doing, whether it's writing or reading or maths, take feedback and get better as they're reaching that point. So I guess it's a little kind of introduction about design thinking. There's lots of stuff out there on the web, that lots of resources and everything that you can use to help you along the design thinking journey. So to talk us through some of the particular activities that we went through in the Google Teacher Academy, we've got Anne, I think, is coming up first, and Anne's going to talk us through how might we statements, which is that point in the after immersion where you're synthesizing your thoughts into something quite tangible, a sentence that's quite tangible. But I'll let Anne go from here. So Anne, if you'd like to talk a little bit about how might we statements.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, I thought I had a really clear idea in my mind when I arrived at the Teacher Academy of what I was doing, and then over the process of writing my how might we statement, I actually ended up with 3 different versions, and I was finally happy with the third version. I have put a link there to our team presentation where we all put our slides, and you can see it wasn't a a process where you could just write something and go, that's brilliant. We did kind of thrash things out. The nature of the how might we statement is that we would say, how might we action what for whom in order to change something. So that structure really helped us to get our thoughts clear about how we were keeping things succinct, I guess, was the most important thing, and really clear. My first how might we statement was, how might we encourage risk-taking for teachers in order to help them understand why change in education is necessary. And I still like it as a statement, but I felt that maybe I was focusing a little bit on a potential barrier to my moonshot, and I wanted to try and be a bit more positive in my approach, and through talking it through with my mentor and the members of my team, we really thought about how we could look at what was really working already in my school and how I could harness that to really make some changes without, you know, banging my head against a brick wall in some areas. So I changed it to, how might we encourage the embracing of challenge for students in order to help them innovate, create, and demonstrate how change in education is possible. And for me, what I was trying to get at there was that often it's the students who are ready to embrace change. It's the students who are ready to try new things and experiment and fail and try again. And really that I should be harnessing that energy and enthusiasm that they have and showing other students and other educators who might be reluctant to try new things just what a success it could be. And that really led me to my third how might we, which is much more succinct, and it's really about student-centered learning and taking the power away from the teacher, which can be quite challenging in the classroom, but giving away some of that and letting the children have the control and letting them be in charge of their own learning. And my final statement, which I'm running with now and I really love, is how might we amplify the voice of our students in order to put them at the centre. And that's really about, you know, embracing change and letting the children talk about learning what's most interesting to them, really bringing that inquiry model across all areas of learning.
And I think with forming the how might we statement, that fourth word is so important, isn't it? The verb there, you know, the how might we analyze or enhance, or that's quite a special word that comes into play with this. But thank you, Anne. And so after people had formulated their how might we statement in their first version, I guess that was important for people to understand that when they were writing it. It was just their first version. So after that, we got some participants got critique on their how might we statements, and the way we got critique was through a hackers critique, HAKRS. So Alyx is going to talk a little bit about hackers and how that helped us to refine our how might we statements.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so something I found really interesting was the way that Tom Barrett set up the protocol for critiquing our work and for critiquing others, and I think that it's very easy to kind of get to grips with flaws possibly in our own thinking, but it's difficult to be mindful of how you're talking to others about things that might jump out at you, especially when you've only met quite recently. I think is something to be really careful of. And so they talked us through this protocol, which I thought was really interesting and have used in my own class. So as Matt said, it's called HAKRS, HAKRS, which stands for helpful, ambitious, kind, realistic, and specific. And they gave us some kind of prompt questions and talking about what each of those things meant. So being helpful, talking about the fact that is your critique helping to improve the work or the idea and move that how might we forward. Being ambitious, this in particular was an aspect of the critique that I really engaged with, and a fellow Kiwi GCT, Diana, who was in my group, was really great at framing her questions in terms of what does that look like if you amplify that beyond your classroom, beyond your school, beyond New Zealand. You know, how does that look if you take it back down from being just your school, just your classroom, just the teachers you work with. What does it look like in different contexts? We also talked about being hard on content but soft on people, and being really mindful of how you're talking to others. When you're really focused, you can drill down quite quickly, and it was really key to be aware of how you're framing things. Realistic. The whole of GTA Sydney was about moonshots, and so it's a little bit kind of not quite the same to talk about being realistic and having a moonshot at the same time, but we're ultimately trying to drill this moonshot down to being something that we can make change with, and so it was helpful to kind of have that be a part of the how might we process. And then of course specific. So again, with that big picture thinking, it's going, okay, well, how can we take this big picture into that first next step? And so having others chip in from all different kinds of contexts, personally I found really valuable in terms of moving that conversation forward, and as Anne was saying, about helping you step through those refinements, helping you talk about how can I tweak, what words need changing in order to get the outcome that my moonshot is really thinking about. Yeah,
totally. And so to help you kind of work through some of those issues that Alyx was talking about, and especially in the synthesis phase, when you've got this wealth of information from lots of different parties, a really helpful activity you can do is something called hexagonal thinking, which is pretty cool. And I think Barbara is going to talk about this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara. You need to just turn your mic on there.
Okay, is that better?
There we go. Yep, go for it.
Okay, cool. So hexagonal thinking, I feel really sorry for the poor person who had to cut out those gazillions of hexagons that we had. One of the things we needed to do was think about the barriers that were going to be stopping us from achieving our moonshot. So on each of our little hexagons, we got to write some of the barriers. So we just basically brainstormed these with a buddy, and got a nice big pile of them sitting there, and then we had to order them, and we took turns and we ordered them into what was our biggest barrier and then how the rest kind of fell into place, and then we could see what were the biggest challenges we had to overcome, and then we swapped over and the other person had a turn depending on whatever their focus was going to be. So yeah, well, it's quite a cool thing, and I see lots of people are now using it in their classrooms to connect ideas and also to look at ways we can overcome challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had got through activities such as hexagonal thinking and formulating that how might we statement, we'd really honed in on what participants wanted to focus on. So from there, we had written our how might we statement, and from there it was an activity called 100 ideas in 10 minutes. So Tom Barrett, he chucked on Cinnamon, which was it's an exactly 10-minute song, and everyone just let loose on paper. So I think Alyx is going to talk about how what happened with the 100 ideas in 10 minutes activity.
Yeah, so again, this was something that I personally found really valuable and have used several times with my students. And it's just part of it is the idea of getting rid of that critique out of your own brain. So you just literally anything that comes up as a possibility, you write it down, and you can piggyback off it. You know, sometimes you come up with one concept and then you start elaborating on it, but the idea is to not drill down too far into the how or the pragmatic parts of the concepts, but just really keep going with generating as many varied possible solutions to your how might we. And I think I can't remember the exact total that our whole cohort generated in the 10 minutes, but it was a pretty impressive number. I think my table alone, we, the sort of 10 or so of us hit well over 500, which when you think about the sheer brain power and all the creativity that you're kind of putting into play there, in 10 minutes to come up with 500 possible ideas is pretty awesome, and goes to show the power of that kind of concentrated, getting rid of that little kind of person that says no in your head and just really, really going for it down on paper was very effective.
And it was quite challenging, wasn't it? I mean, you've got this empty piece of paper in front of you, you've got a how might we statement at the top, and you're just like, oh. But from our perspective, it was interesting to see people kind of start off, and there was a little trickle, and then there was a few more ideas. But then after about 2 or 3 minutes of kind of that warming up phase, it was just a torrent of ideas, and people were just. I've got a picture of Steve Mouldy just kind of hunched over, and he's just like, rah,
yeah,
really getting into the ideas.
It was really key too, because you kind of 10 minutes is quite a considerable period to just be focused on that one task, and you sort of, for me, I hit that kind of 7 minutes, and by that stage you've come up with a few ideas that you think might be really viable, and it's really hard to push past the stopping and working on those and keep going for generation. And it ended up being something that I was looking at in the last kind of 30 seconds of scribbling. But had I stopped earlier, I would have kind of gone down a completely different and maybe not as effective kind of part.
Yeah, so it's definitely about that tenacity to get through the time and to keep at it, because that's when the best ideas come. Totally. So then everybody had a big piece of kind of, was it newsprint or paper, and they had all these ideas scrawled all over them. And what we did then was really cool. It was something called a silent gallery, and I'll let Barbara, I think, talk about this one, about the silent gallery that happened after that. It was pretty cool.
Okay, I have 2 ideas in my head, Matt, and I'm not sure I've got the right one. So we ordered our things into, yes, no? Yep, okay. So we had to then order our ideas into what were the wildest, craziest ones out there, what were the ones we thought were we could live with, and then what was not so what was fairly ordinary in what we were doing now. So we were looking for those really wild, extreme ideas and how we could put them into place. And we had to prioritise, basically. I think we had $100 each, and look at where we would invest most of our money, whether it was going to be in the wildest ideas or in the safest ideas.
Yeah, so that was a way of filtering, because you'd come up with so many 100 ideas. That was a great way of filtering your ideas. And then so we kind of we had these big pieces of paper, and everyone kind of marked out what was their moonshot idea, what was their darling idea, and what was their safe idea, amidst all their other ideas. And then we were all, there was, I don't know, 50 or 60 of us there, and everyone was nice and quiet, and we kind of walked around. And we looked at everyone else's ideas, and we did stuff like we ticked people's ideas, and we put little gold stars on people's ideas, and we had post-it notes, and we gave people feedback on their ideas, how to improve them, which ones we thought we were looking like a really interesting avenue to pursue. And the good part about that is you were giving feedback on people's ideas, but you were also being a bit of a magpie, because as you walked around, you saw interesting bits and bobs that you could then, kind of possibly incorporate into your own moonshot after that. So yeah, that was the filtering of ideas and the silent gallery, and so. Then everyone kind of went back to the tables. They saw all this. They saw the huge piece of paper with all this feedback from 50 other people on it, their own ideas, their own filtering. And from then, I think we had a bit of lunch, and we came back, and then it was kind of action time, putting those ideas into action, and kind of step up to the mark time. So Anna, do you want to talk about the whole kind of party popper thing, celebrating the small wins and getting going after? So we've got all these ideas. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. And I think by that time we were all feeling like we'd literally pulled every brain cell out of our brains and used it to try and come up with these amazing ideas. And I guess I really like something that Tom Barrett said, that you could write an action plan now, but then actually you need to just take action. There's no point planning. You've really pulled apart every idea and really looked at this moonshot from all angles. You've got to start acting now, and that was quite confronting, because you're thinking, well, I'm in Sydney and my school's in New Zealand, and what am I going to do to act? And so we had these party poppers on the table, and the idea was that when you took just one small step, whatever it was going to be, and took some action to just start down that road to make your moonshot project a reality, that you need to celebrate it. And that was really echoed by some of the key speakers that we had come in towards the end, talking about how it is to be an entrepreneur, and that you actually often get so caught up in the big end goal and the vision and the dream, and you don't take the time to stop and look at any of the little things that you are achieving on a day-to-day basis that are getting you there, and that can make it feel like quite a lonely road. So it was a really lovely way to kind of get us to act on that idea. And so, I mean, one of the couple of things that I did is I emailed my principal and arranged a meeting with her in the when I got back to New Zealand to set out some plans for the next term. And I talked to Amy about Google Educator Groups. That was one of the things that I realised was going to be a really important part of my moonshot, making those connections and people to collaborate with. And it was very lovely, just all around the room every now and again, you know, the party popper would go off, people would cheer, and everyone would feel happy for that person because they've done something. And also gives you a wee bit of pressure to think, right, I really do have to think of just one tiny step, even if that's all it is. So yeah, it was a really enjoyable part of the whole experience.
Yeah, it was cool to see some of those ideas become reality, you know, the start to become reality. And it's important, like, often when you've got these big how might we statements, you can get analysis paralysis, you know, you can sit there and it's this big thing and you're like, oh, but we really tried to push that it's the small steps along the way that really matter. It's not the big, you don't have to make big giant chess moves, you can make small little moves towards your goal, and those are to be celebrated just as much as the big ones. So yeah, that was kind of how we ended it, wasn't it? And I guess so. It's great that we went through this whole couple of days of really hardcore thinking and action. But how's it going since then? Is what is the interesting part. Alyx, how since you've got back to New Zealand and you're in your school and you know. It's reality, you know, your term 4. How's it been going since then? What have you been doing since the GTA?
The biggest impact for me has really actually been the use of those activities that I experienced myself. That's had the biggest takeaway for me, in that they have become part of my practice in the classroom. So the hexagons in particular, I posted a link to my blog. I started using these with revision with my seniors straight away, and they just made a huge impact, and all of the girls went, oh my goodness, why haven't we been doing this for the whole year? These are incredible. I see it now. That's what I kept hearing. I see it now. So one of my first things once they left and I had a bit more time was I've actually made like a permanent set, because as Barbara mentioned earlier, cutting out lots of hexagons lots of times is not particularly sustainable. So I've made a whole set and laminated them for next year so I can start using those. It's opened me up to kind of the broader collaboration. That's something that I had seen a lot of already, but just being able to kind of connect more tangibly with people across my school, not just in my own kind of area, but thinking about, you know, what is it that you're doing in social studies or science, or, you know, even in our junior school that can be working in with my practice and what I'm doing for my students. So for me, that it's kind of made that, you know, what is possible into, okay, what can I use and how can I take those next steps? And I think that was kind of that real affirmation for me as a process that I really enjoyed and utilizing.
Brilliant. Yeah, and Amy and myself are doing exactly the same thing, which is cool. Barbara, how are you since you've got back? how are you finding your how might we statement? How are you developing your ideas, that kind of thing?
Yep. Because I don't work in a school, it's permanently. It's slightly different. So I've got one school that is quite close to where I live, and so I can pop in there reasonably often. So it's going really slowly at the moment because there's a lot of other things happening that, like, they're not a GEGNZ school, or they just are. We're getting infrastructure sorted. We need to get them on fibre because what we want is go back a step. Changing teacher mindsets was where we started, and then, like Anne said, we changed to empowering students to own their own learning. So before we can do that, we actually need to have a lot of the background stuff in place. So we're just getting that all up sorted and running, and then I'm working with 2 teachers, and we're going to be hopefully, training the kids up to be techs in the school, to be leading techie brekkies with the teachers, doing a lot of that stuff, and then hopefully getting them to organise a kids expo where they can work with teachers from other schools as well as kids from other schools. So that's kind of where we're heading, but like it's term 4. This is quite a hard stuff, So we're all ready to go in term 1. So all go for term 1. So fingers crossed that everything will be in place by then.
Cool, that sounds really great. And how are you doing with your how much we use statement?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I think I'm in a really lucky position where I have a principal who is, like, her natural way of thinking is moonshot thinking. So, and I also really enjoyed from the GTA where they said that, like, somebody else's just, safe bet could be your moonshot and vice versa. So keeping a perspective on the fact that, realistically our school is a full Google Apps education school. We're partway down the bring your own devices road, but what I was looking at was really trying to change our way of teaching to make a full inquiry learning across all learning areas of the curriculum. And I thought that was probably never going to happen because it's such a big change. But my principal is kind of, and obviously this is not purely based on my experience at the GTA, but it's kind of coming back and us having some really great conversations. We've just changed our approach to learning for next year. We're going full collaborative teaching across all areas, really trying to integrate the use of the technology in the school much more for creation and innovation. Students who are actually no longer consuming, because we all know you can just go in at that substitution level and happily consume away, but it's not really bringing out the full potential of having that as a tool. So a lot of changes. I'm changing year levels so that I can upskill some of the older students, because my project focus was junior school, but I'm realizing that if I can get some confident experts, children at the year 5, 6 level, then they can really nicely filter through to the other junior school, and that's much more effective teaching when they've mastered a concept to share it with their peers. And got in touch with you guys about hosting a Google Education Group event next year, so I'm working on that a little bit and just hoping. We've got a maker culture focus in our school next year, and we've got Stephen Lethbridge coming down as part of that in term 1, so hoping to get him involved and just start spreading the word in Central Otago about what is possible in schools. So exciting times.
That is exciting times, and old Lethbridge, I'm sure he'll be able to offer something down there. That's really good, and it's good to see. There's the big kind of things, but there's also the little things, and I guess a big takeaway for me was that it was the moonshot, but it was the learning in terms of the process you went through. And so I know Amy and myself have been experimenting a little bit with, and just like you guys, some of those design thinking activities in class. We've been having kind of little GTAs over the last term in our own classrooms. So Amy, how have you find kind of putting into place some of those activities in the classroom? Like what have the kids found helpful or hard or challenging?
So we really went through before the GTA participants went to Sydney. They went through a huge immersion phase, and we knew that for our students, them exploring the world that they may not have necessarily known was really important for them. So really getting a broad scope of experiences. Our main focus was effective communication. So we did a whole range of activities for 6 weeks and really just immersed them in a whole lot of different activities. And then kind of took them through, I've taken a group of students through the process similar to what the Google Certified Teachers went through. We tried the hexagonal thinking, which was quite interesting, and I hear Matt had a similar experience.
A similar experience, yes, indeed.
I teach year 2 to 5, so yeah, I could probably have done that. We could have done that a wee bit better, so that'll be something we come back to. But they ended up getting a how might we statement each, and that's been worked and we reworked. And I really like the focus on feedback and not just getting feedback from their group, but getting feedback from the group as a whole and working together. And that's been really nice, and not being too precious about your ideas and being really open to change and being really resilient with that change.
Have you found that's filtered through to other areas, such as writing in particular, probably, or?
Yeah, the kids have actually, because we get them to have little areas in the common where they can put up, all their thinking and their thoughts, and they've started to put up little whiteboards with feedback and ideas, and people can just go around and give them any of their feedback or ideas on anything that they're doing. So they've really loved that, and I shared the hackers critique and have been really mindful not to dumb anything down. If there's words that they don't understand or don't know or understand, we talk through it. I don't alter too much for them.
Yeah, I've found it's been really cool to get ideas, because a lot of our kids at my school, they we've got one-to-one Chromebooks, and they do a lot of this stuff in docs and online. But it's been really great to see them get all those ideas out of their heads and out of the computers and putting them up on the wall and on bits of paper and photographing and that kind of thing. Because when they get it all out there, it's just like the hexagonal thinking. When it's out there, it enables you to move stuff around much more easily than the constraints of in a computer often doesn't let you do. So I've seen a lot of people kind of walking past a big messy wall full of ideas and just kind of stopping and looking and maybe rearranging something or scrolling down a little note, and then other people of course can come and discussions are facilitated because of those messy project nest kind of walls.
Yeah.
Which has been really great. It's good to see things get out into the physical world more.
Yeah, and we're really mindful of making our learning really visible, and especially for our parent community, putting things up on the wall so they can see what we're doing. And I'll just share my screen and show you. This is one of our visible learning walls. So we've got the how might we statement, and some of them have changed. So we've just put the new one on top of it, and we've had a little reflection under it. So we haven't taken the old one down, so you can really see their processes and just kind of put things up. You can see that they use post-it notes for feedback and things like that. But it's been really good to share that with our parents, and they can see what we're talking about and what the students have been doing.
I love it that it shows that learning isn't just this kind of boom magical moment. It's actually hard work where you go from one, you get better and you get feedback and you get better and you think about something else and then you get a little bit better and better and better. It's that prototyping culture that I think is so important across all of school. And we did a cool activity where kids got into pairs and they sketched each other's faces, And obviously the first time around they were pretty average, but then we got hackers' feedback on that sketch, how exactly we can improve, and then we did another sketch, and then we got feedback and we got another sketch, and we took photos of each prototype along the way. So there were 5 prototypes, and going from prototype 1 to prototype 5, you could just see how you're getting better and better and better as a really visual way of displaying how feedback is so important in the process of learning. So yeah, I mean, from my perspective, this whole design thinking process is just meshes so well with good learning and what we know about good learning. So I've found it extremely awesome in class.
And the kids have liked it because it's been fast-paced and hands-on and constantly changing, and things don't have to be perfect. And you know, some have struggled with that, some love it. So it's been interesting seeing their process.
Cool. So I think that's about it. Do we have a few parting words from
Now
Amy?
we're just going to talk about advice for hopefuls for next year, or anyone thinking that they might want to apply for the next Google Teachers Academy, whether that's run by NOTOSH or Q or anything like that. Whether you highly recommend it, that kind of thing. Fiona and Nick, you can jump in on this as well.
I'll jump in first. I would really recommend it. I think it's really key. Again, as Amy said, it depends on who's running it, but our Google Teacher Academy was very, very different to the ones that have gone before. NOTOSH completely redesigned it, and it was all about this design thinking as opposed to how the way I've read about it in the past, which was much more focused on the tools. So if the sort of stuff that Matt and that we've been talking about tonight, if that really appeals to you, if that's looking and teaching, then definitely go for something like the Google Teacher Academy, because it very much was kind of an incubation and how to do this and the philosophy behind it, and I really got a lot out of that process. So if that's something that appeals to you, then I definitely think it's something to consider.
And it was really interesting. Amy and I went to the Teacher Academy in last year, and we went to the one this year as well, and it was really interesting seeing the differences. And we got, Amy, right, we got so much out of both. It wasn't a case of one is, you know, better than the other one. It was definitely a case of, wow, both are amazing experiences, and they're completely different. So whether it's the same next year or different, who knows, but both wonderful learning experiences. And how did you find it? Do you have any advice for hopefuls or people thinking about it for next year?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think probably the biggest thing that I got out of it, I mean there's so much, but was that real taking that collaboration beyond my immediate school or my immediate, you know, region, and really making use of all the amazing educators who are totally available online and through this kind of environment, and really making connections and asking for help and sharing and reflecting. And it's really opened my eyes to just how much help there is out there, how many people are interested in sharing and connecting, and that's given me a lot more confidence to be able to do that. In terms of advice, one of the most beneficial thing I think was at one of the GAPE Summit in Christchurch earlier this year. There was actually a really great session on how to apply to the Google Teacher Academy, and one of the things they talked about was especially focusing obviously around the video presentation that you have to do. And obviously we all know now that when you fill out the questionnaire, that, you know, the form that you submit, you have to be really concise, and that's really good in terms of making you clarify your thinking on a lot of ideas. I'm pretty verbose, so it was challenging just to keep it to not so many characters. But they talked about, you know, it's not about being a Google groupie, it's not about saying I love Google the most, it's about showing passion for your vocation and wanting to affect change and being a reflective teacher. And I think that if you can show that somehow in your video and in what you put in your application, that's really what they're looking for, and just being, you know, I guess true to your own beliefs around what it is that you're trying to communicate with your learners.
And absolutely, and the power of connecting, like make sure you're getting out there and you're getting involved and you're being a connected educator, as we all should be in this day and age. Barbara, do you have any advice for people wanting to apply next year?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that most people have commented on is it's not the same as it used to be, and I don't know that because I wasn't there, but it's not about the tools. The tools are a given, but it's how we use the tools so they are seamless and choose the right tool for the right job. Yeah, like I say, the tools are there, but we don't see them because it's just how it is, kind of thing, in the way that we work. Yeah.
Yeah, much more about the it was kind of Google thinking rather than Google tools,
Yes,
which was
more about that whole design process and the thinking that goes on behind it, and how the tools are there to support that thinking and that processing, rather than actually learning about how the tools work.
Exactly.
There's some feedback from Justine in the Q&A, who attended as well, and saying having evidence of 3 criteria is really important, with the 200 to 400 character maximum. And also another one too, which I think is great, is to with the minimum characters, you can actually put a link in, and if people want to read more, they can. Which actually is important to actually think about what your digital footprint looks like as well, and looking after that online and building your networks and using social media, Google Plus, Twitter, your blogs, etc.
Yeah,
they're really good at that 400 characters. I had to delete one full stop right at the end because it was 401. So I wouldn't submit until I deleted the full stop. Then we worked.
Awesome. So that about rounds us up for tonight. Thank you, all you newly Google certified teachers, for sharing your adventure this far. We hope to have a few more share their journey in the coming months. And that's kind of it from the GEG New Zealand for this year. We will be back in the new year with some exciting events planned in the pipeline, and also our regular spotlights. Remember to check in with the community and share there. You can also host your own events in your own regions. Feel free to talk to any of us about that. Yeah, any parting words?
Just wanted to add in that we've set up a GEG_NZ Twitter account. You might have seen that we've been the team's been tweeting through that this evening, and also there's the #GEGNZ, the hashtag GEGNZ to follow as well. Just one other thing too, there was a question in the Q&A about watching the Hangout and how do I join. When there's a Hangout on air, whoever's hosting the Hangout, in this case it's Amy on the GEGNZ, invites members to come in and participate, and then everybody else is actually just watching it live streaming. So that's kind of how that works. So to actually join a Hangout on air, you have to be invited by whoever's hosting. Okay, thanks. Oop. Amy disappeared. Oh no, there she is. Just a parting shot too, just to a shout out to all of the community for being so active, especially within the G+ community. Lots of questions and answering. It's great to see that continuing, and we're approaching the 700 members in our community, so that's really great. If you have got colleagues and other people on your networks who've not joined the Google Plus community, please encourage them to. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'd just like to thank again our lovely participants for coming along and spending their own time to share and spread the good word, so thank you very much. Otherwise, I think that's us for the Hangouts. Have a lovely holiday, relaxing holiday in the beautiful summer sun, hopefully. And we'll see you back in the new year. But thank you very much. And Amy's gone, so we're going to end quite awkwardly because she's the one who closes the Hangout. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think we'll probably just have to go because she's.
I think we're going to have to go, right?
It's still showing us live. So if we leave, it'll stop.
Okay. Lovely.
Okay.
Okay.
Merry
See you
Christmas,
guys.
everyone.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.